Hey guys, Tabi Slick here, and happy World Book Day. In honor of this very special day, I am going to be reviewing my latest book that I've read, of course. So I just got back from Munich, Germany, and as I was traveling in Germany, I was also learning and reading in German as well. I've been trying to study Deutsch, and so I took with me this book, Short Stories for Beginners by Olly Richards and Alex Rawlings. It's a series of short stories. It's all written in German. Except at the end of each chapter, there's a list of German words that have been put in bold in the story. And so you get to learn some vocabulary, but they don't translate everything. And really that's how you should be learning, is you should be reading, but not trying to translate every single word in the text. So this is nice. So it'll have a list. I don't know if you can see that, but it'll have a list of vocabulary here, the words that are in bold, that were bold in the story. And then it will have a list of questions at the end. See that? Fragen im. So questions about, what you've read or the story name. And so you also get to test your comprehension. Now, at first, comprehension is really low because you're working with maybe a vocabulary of 20 words. But if you reread some of these stories, you'll be picking up a lot of applicable words. And so I had an awesome opportunity of taking this with me. And on the flight to Germany, I had been reading a story about a girl who goes with her friend up into the woods, and they get separated and lost. And she has her cell phone, but it loses connection. And anyways, a lot of stuff happened in this short story. But the word that I learned, and yes, this is a lot of reading to learn one word. But I learned one word, and that was Empfang. And Empfang means network connection or service, which I didn't realize was going to be so applicable until we landed in Munich and we were having trouble getting our cell phones to get SIM cards for our phones. Long story short, we decide to go ahead and go to our Airbnb. We get there, there's no way for us to connect with our host or get our keys, and it's cold, it's under 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and it starts snowing, and the wind is blowing, so it feels to me, I'm from Texas, and so we get snow maybe once every 10 years. And so we're like, okay, we need to stop and ask somebody. And I remembered the short story that I was reading from German Short Stories for Beginners. And I was like, Empfang, I know network connection. Okay, I also know the word for my phone, which is handy. It's also pretty handy to have your phone, right? So I love how logical that is. So, I was able to pair some phrases together and walked up to another man who was loading up his car, probably some worker, and, I asked him if I could borrow his phone. I didn't say borrow, I don't know that word yet. But I was able to put all these individual words into something that he actually understood, and all from this book. If you look on Goodreads, there are some people who say that this book, they basically say that the stories in this book are not entertaining, they aren't good, But the title says that it's for beginners. So I will say that once you start learning more German and become more intermediate than a beginner, this is probably not going to be the book for you at that point. It is for beginners. And for a beginner, I will say when you first look at these stories and you see nothing but German, it will be a little intimidating. And also for those reviewers who say that these stories are too easy, I was on the train from Munich to Schwangau, and it was so full, so my husband and I weren't able to sit next to each other, which is fine. We were together all the time. So we sit in separate seats. And while I'm on the train, while I'm sitting next to this stranger, this older man, I'm reading this book because I take it everywhere with me now. The older man next to me says, "Excuse me, can I interrupt you for a moment?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." He says, "I have a question. So how much of this story are you understanding?" And I told him, "Well, I'm understanding about 30%. And individual words I understand, and then I'll go back to the list of vocabulary and look up the words in bold that I don't know. And from that, I'm able to piece together the story. So I understand what's going on, and anything that I don't understand, I'm able to imply what's going on. And so that's how I'm getting through these stories." And he says, "Well, I've been reading some of it, and it looks rather hard." And, he went on to say he's from Germany. He speaks German fluently. And so that made me rather happy that I'm reading this beginner story, but a German man is telling me, someone who's fluent in German is telling me what I'm reading is difficult. And he also said that how I was learning German and how I was reading this story is exactly how he learned English. And so that was another positive thing. So, even if you're not learning German, even if you are learning French, or maybe you're learning English and listening to this, sorry for my accent and mispronunciations, or Spanish, any language that you're learning, my suggestion is that you get a book that is similar to this, that is for a beginner, all in German or all in whatever language that you're wanting to learn, that will have a list of vocabulary at the end of each short story. And I know that this company produces other languages. Now, if you are more intermediate, maybe you need to start looking into stuff that is more targeted for intermediates. But if you're a beginner, this is a really good way to increase your knowledge, especially if you put into practice the little bit that you have been learning, even if it's not a correct sentence, even if you don't understand the syntax, you put together the words, and if you're with somebody that knows the language, who is patient, then they will correct you in a friendly way. So an example of this is back when we were in Munich, and I was asking the stranger if I could borrow his phone. After we get through that, he asked us where we were from, all in German, of course, and I said that I'm from Texas with the horses. So I said my first German joke, yes. But I said mit die Pferde. Mit die Pferde. which mit die vierde is, mit and vierde is correct. Those two words are correct. But when I said that, he chuckled along with my joke and said mit den vierde, mit den vierde. And so in German, they have a lot of different ways to say the. And in English, we have one or maybe two, the and the. But most people just say the. And so when he said that, it wasn't him trying to correct me on purpose, like, you know, like an adult to a child. It was more of just a laughing and repeating what I said. But when I heard it, it registered, and so I folded that away and was like, oh, it's den vierde in this situation. So that was kind of cool. And I was happy that I was able to say a little joke, my own, you know, little joke, and make another person laugh in another language. That made me feel really good. All in all, I can't say enough how awesome this book is, and I hope that you all will be inspired by this, and for World Book Day, go out and get a book about another language, or maybe even about another culture, or maybe pick up a new language. It is a fun experience and a great way to stay connected with the world through reading. So thanks so much for listening to my ramblings and to my review. And if you are wanting to learn German, I definitely will say you should get this book. You should read this book. Tschüss.